Okay, so I wanted to go over something that I've been seeing that I didn't know a whole lot about, but now's coming to light as I'm studying deeper in our ancestry and better understanding the settlers. How would you say the settlers, the migrants, the workers that our ancestors when they came from the old world to America and why they came and where they came from. This is my 23andMe ancestry report. I don't do a whole lot of genealogy research with 23andMe, but they give a good ancestry report. It's really similar to what I get with Ancestry.com, and so this is going to be a commentary, so I don't get sued for using someone else's practice. For this is all fair use, and I'm just commenting on 23andMe's interface here. Okay, so you see here 98% European. That's no surprise there, with British Irish being the number one, and my most likely hits. Let's kind of we can take a brief look at this. I don't think it will hurt, and kind of give you an idea. And this will kind of help understand what the main topic of this video is going to be on. Okay, so I give a little brief overview um, on the history of Ireland, and they show you where they think a lot of my ancestry is located. Now, this is going to be most based on today's population. So I get a big hit in Greater London. Well, there's a whole lot of people that live in London now. It is huge. And so that would make sense that a lot of people that maybe came from the outskirts during the 1600s would have moved to London, to the bigger cities to work now. So there would be a lot of similar DNA there. Lancashire, this is all in the United Kingdom. And then you get down where you see, okay, here in Wales, which would be number 6. There, of course, the borderlands up top, Scotland. And that's in the UK. Then we go another likely match here in Ireland, where Dublin, County Cork, I guess, would be the number 1. Now, that's showing a very County Cork is. I don't see any of my ancestry coming from County Cork. I think what you're seeing there is Ireland now is such a more populated place, and County Cork does represent a lot of Celtic, deep Irish Celtic ancestry, which we have in the family. We also County Dublin. That's going to be a lot of Anglo-Irish too, and Kerry. And it's pretty neat. So a lot of Irish, definitely. Uh, a lot of British, but a lot of Celtic realm British. If you really look at it, on the borderlands, you get a lot of, like we see here in the Midlands and Tyne-Wear, Glasgow City. Okay, so let me step back a little bit, um, and that's all pretty neat, and that gives you a little bit of history. But there's a history hidden that nobody wants to touch, and it's very hard, and it's politically taboo at this moment to go there. Okay, but we're going to go there because that's what I like to do. This is my channel. I'll go there and until they kick me off of it. We go on down. French and German. Yeah, we see that in the ancestry. We do have French and German ancestors. Moses's were German. There's some keys. There's French. The Pugsleys were French, and they married the Williams. Scandinavian. These are trace regions. I don't really see a whole lot of Scandinavian. Um, that's really the English is where you get that. They're really similar between Scandinavians and English, and you get down here in Native American. And I get Native American on every test I've done. So what we do, and that Native American is, I mean, I'm friends with people, in a couple of different tribes, and that's one thing about Native American is that it's a very weak DNA signal, and there was 80% of Native Americans were wiped out due to disease, and the majority of them were wiped out before our ancestors even got there. I know politically they say we came here and wiped them out, but there was a lot of ships before there was ever really the plantation. There was explorers that came to the New World, Spanish, and they just couldn't handle the cowpox and the smallpox. They'd never been exposed to that, and it just wiped them out. The whole Mississippi Valley culture. So when you got in North American, 1.8% is 2% is really a large amount of DNA, Native American DNA to show. And a lot of people in the tribes, man, you'll look in there, they may have 5%. I got 5% on my heritage, but yeah, there's just not a whole lot of it. You get a lot of the Andean, a lot of the southern um, DNA, but that's not okay. So back to the topic. It's going to be this new feature they've got here that I thought was really cool, and that's this recent ancestry in the Americas, and it is showing for me Barbados. Now, why would it do that? I've never in my life Barbados. That doesn't show up in the DNA, so that shows up in the it shows up in here as okay. So you're talking about the West Indies, and it gives a little history of here. Of course, they're going to be very PC on 23andMe's website, and they're not going to touch at all where we're getting this hint of Barbados. This is a likely match, all right? And I even see it in doing the genealogy. And this is where it comes from. So let me switch over. Um, Let me back out of here. And we're going to move to this website. And this is about Irish slavery that took place during the English Civil War. All right, and that's going to be our link to Barbados. And an event that happened that was called basically being barbadosed. Oliver Cromwell, who was originally Oliver Williams, I've said this before, changed his name to Cromwell. And during the Civil War, the parliamentarians took over the country, and he went after the Irish very, very hard. He was a hardcore Puritan, and he hated Catholicism, and and a lot of the Welsh, and a lot of the Scottish. Okay, they went after. If you were a loyalist, if you were on the side of the king, they would get you, kill you, or sell you into service. I'll try to see if I can put a link to this article here on the video. I'm not that technical savvy, but I wanted to read something that I saw here. And this is going to be as you see here, 1629. This is going to be around the same time period that our ancestors start coming into the New World. All right, and they come in on these ships to the plantations. A lot of them are already on plantations in Ireland, in Dublin, and in Northern Ireland, in Antrim, in Donegal. Okay, and you got to think of the British Isles as being completely overpopulated, and this is being a class system where there's just these planters are the upper class, and these overpopulated underclass are treated terribly, or locked up, just murdered. Um, they would play these games on them to where they would drop a penny in their beer, and when they drank it down and picked up the penny, someone would say, "Oh, you just stole the king's penny, and you need to be shipped off." And that's a crime. That's a crime where you got shipped off, and where they ship you, they would ship you to Virginia, but at first it was Barbados. And Barbados, could you imagine just being this fair-skinned Irish person? This happened to Jane Pellingham, wife of Thomas Dice, our first Dice relative into the New World. And even I see records where Thomas Dice was in Barbados, and you were shipped off on these sugarcane plantations close to the equator, where you just burned alive. Your skin was not prepared for this, and just treated horribly. And at this point, this is pre sub-Saharan African slave trade. They didn't think about it. They 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 went to the sub-Saharan Africans because they were basically um, easier for them to make money in the long run than you did. Uh, they were more accustomed to this harsher climate was another reason. A lot of your Irish, a lot of your Welsh, your Celtic ancestors, a lot of them just died off. I mean, very quickly, getting shipped to these places like Barbados and Virginia, these tropical climates. You died of malaria. You died of basically sunstroke. Was really common here but this, and so this is where we're getting this West Indies DNA match, and and it's neat. So here we go. So many Irish slaves were sent to Barbados between 12,000 to 60,000 that the term Barbados began to be used by the 1630s. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of this. Uh, Frenchmen, 7 to 8,000 Scots. Um, these are our ancestors. And we don't get talked about this because it doesn't fit the modern narrative. And it doesn't fit a good political narrative today. But listen, that slavery was just part of human history, and how and has been for since there's been humans. And it works in America to use to completely concentrate one group and to pit one group against each other. Um, but these same people that do this now were the same people that had no problem, you know, uh, enslaving their own countrymen. Didn't think anything about it. They wouldn't have seen them as equals to them at all. Um, Not a bit. And listen, this is an extremely tough time. This civil war that took place had such a huge effect on our ancestors, because this was the time when our ancestors came to the New World, and they, I mean, why would you spend months on a ship? Well, you would to get away from this, or you just weren't given the choice. You were caught in London. If you were in debt, you would sell your kid into slavery for 31 years to these planters. You were allowed to beat them up to 31 lashes a day, and that was pretty common. Benjamin Franklin said he was beaten daily, um, who was basically an apprentice or to his brother. His dad sold him to his brother. This is just the way people thought back then. It's crazy to think that now. Um, in the clearing grounds for the adventurers and soldiers, English capitalists of that day transported to Barbados the English plantations in America. It was a measure beneficial to Ireland, which was thus relieved of population that might trouble the planters. It was a benefit to the people removed, which might thus be made English and Christian. a great benefit to the West India sugar planters who desired men and boys for their bondsmen, and women and Irish girls to solace them. This is very true. The very terms boy and girl are slave terms. And the historical term would be bondswomen and bondswomen and bondsmen. They didn't use the term slave back then. They just what it was. And you came here. If you were fortunate, you got to come on a headright system. But even usually, then you were conned out of what you were promised. But no, the truth is, most of the ancestors that came here did come um, as servants, as bondsmen to planters, and it was just a hard time. All right, so I'm gonna finish up with that. I thought this was a neat article, and I thought this was a neat discovery. I'm gonna dig more into it, into this West Indies. You think of Pirates of the Caribbean. That was this time. These ships that you're on this ship, and there's a chance you may, get sunk. There's a chance you may get off the ship or become a pirate. Really cool time, and but it was also a really hard time for our ancestors, and many of them, like Jane Pellingham, like the Dices, um, saw this firsthand. Uh, and it puts in a different perspective. Someone like Henry Dice, who would be 100 years yet later, you know, fighting in the Civil War, you know, and knowing that his great grandmother, was an Irish slave, and did he fight to preserve slavery? I seriously doubt that. I seriously doubt that when he's a descendant of slaves themselves who was mistreated. All right, so that's it, and.